welcome to the podcast, Kurt. It's called the Social Media Marvels. And if you could say a little bit about yourself and what exactly do you do with social media and innovation?
Yeah, so for the I've had a little bit of a different career for the last 20 years. So I've come from corporate finance, where I actually led teams coding software for high-end financial stuff. And that took me into leading innovation for a large company that we ended up taking public, where I ran much of our marketing there. Became a little bit of a social media influencer myself. I was verified on Twitter, very early on, thanks to some investments that I had made around Chicago as well. And then I for the last probably 8 years, I've run marketing for high growth technology companies in the States that have had a couple of really good exits bought by some big companies. I've advised President of the United States, which has been good, on technology, innovation, and American business. And now I'm leading technology for a real estate company.
All right, that's good. So I read on your Twitter, not on your Twitter, on your LinkedIn bio, that you believe in driving revenue by growth and innovation. So what are some factors which are conducive towards growth and innovation in the short term? Because these are really long-term goals. You require a lot of investment and research. So what are some factors which are conducive in the short term as well?
Yeah, for the short term, both for the growing growth with innovation and with social media or marketing in general, I'm a big proponent of talking to customers or potential customers and not trying to sell them anything. So like at the company that I've joined now, I had worked in the real estate industry before, but we're selling technology to realtors and brokers in the United States and hopefully soon abroad. So I actually got on the phone with 200 agents in the first week and literally just called them up. Some of them I had sent email to before, some I had not, and it is very hard to get people to realize I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I kind of like to use a wording that says whether it's for innovation or marketing, well, I just want to ask you 10 or 15 minutes of questions, if that, and so that if I get this right, when I call you back in 6 months with a product to sell you, you will be happy to take my call. And if you can figure that out right, one, it helps a lot for innovation because that lets me figure out what's actually going on in people's day-to-day lives. And if we're not solving real problems, it doesn't matter if I'm changing the button on software or building a new feature. But it matters the same thing for marketing as well. I mean, marketing and sales is what drives the very short-term revenue. And so when I know, one, what their problems actually are, I can speak back to them better. And I know what words they're using for that, because so frequently I found the teams that I've joined, they have a great product, but they don't know how to describe it in a way that is in the day-to-day language that their customers are using. Therefore, it just misses the boat, and they don't sell, and it's hard to innovate then.
True. I mean, right, like in today's world, especially when it comes to technology, I mean, I keep hearing these words like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain and everything, and I'm like, I don't understand it at all. If somebody could just explain it to me in simpler terms, then I could better understand what exactly the product they're trying to sell me is.
Right. And I think I'm a huge fan of where I think Bitcoin will, the blockchain will end up. Maybe Bitcoin as one implementation, but blockchain will end up. But I think most companies that are using anything blockchain related, they're using it as almost a marketing gimmick, even to raise funds on a gimmick. Now, with that said, I've invented some blockchain technology, but we explained it without using blockchain as the core kind of concept, even to our legal team. And now some of that has gone into the patent applications. But from a marketing of the company, like they're changing how products are built, consumer products are built. And none of the blockchain related stuff may ever really get discussed to consumers because consumers don't care. They just care about getting a different product.
That is so true. So like you mentioned, in the short term, it's better to talk to your audience or your potential customers with just the aspect of talking to them and not selling them anything. So for that, you need to be really passionate, and this is something you actually stand by. You're very passionate about everything you do, marketing related or technology related. So apart from that, how can you use passion in your business to engage with the audience better?
Yeah, I love that question, because I think so often I hear other people that give keynote speaks like Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone, and they're like passion about what you do for work. And what I hear from them is not how I view working passionately for work at all. What I hear from them is if you're passionate about real estate, then go into real estate. If you're passionate about software, go into software. For me, my passion, I'm passionate about the journey much more than I am about any particular industry. I've worked in a lot of industries, but I'm passionate about people. And I'm a servant leader at heart. I was raised that way. I've had a lot of things in my life that where I'd gone different directions have pulled me back to that. And so fundamentally, I believe I know I want to help people, and I believe that we're stewards of what we've been given. And so both of my skills, my time, and my money. And because of those things, then I want to be the best steward I can, and I want to help you as my customer, wherever I'm placed at that time. And so when my passion is not to build a better product, my passion is to help you in your day-to-day life. That comes across in everything from an innovation perspective and from a marketing perspective, because one, you feel like I may be trying to sell you something, but I actually care about your product. Like we have people on our customer team right now that if our product that I mentioned that sells to real estate agents, if it's not the right product, they will tell them that, and we're happy to tell them that. And so people, then we get referrals back the same way. And so that when you shift your passion to people, then you actually really care about asking. Because I mentioned about talking to customers or potential customers. When you just ask somebody what their problems are or why they're having an issue with one area, they don't mean to, but frequently they lie. And it's like, because if I ask you what your biggest problem is, it's probably not what your biggest problem is. It's whatever's walked in the door, what your boss has mentioned to you, something at home. And so I have to ask that question 3 or 4 times, not trying to figure out, are you lying, but trying to figure out, like, you want to share that with me. And so I have to be passionate about you as a person and how I can change your life. So when I think you adjust your passion that way, it lets you ask questions that are really curious. And so that's kind of the big thing for me. It's like if your passion doesn't lead to curiosity about your potential customers, you're never going to get good innovation, especially over time.
True. I mean, it's all about, the key is listening over here. So you're not trying to ask questions so that you can plug a feature or you can plug a product in. You're genuinely trying to ask you're really concerned about them, and that's why you're asking certain questions and to getting to know the root cause of the problem, and not support or place a product or a feature over there. So that is really good. That is actually true passion for me as well. So it makes things simpler because you're too honest, and honesty is something that I always gravitate towards, and passion is always pure and honest for me. Yeah. So you also mentioned you've worked with several industries, and right now you're with the real estate one. But out of all the industries that you've worked with, which was the hardest way innovation was most difficult to get, or it was time consuming?
Automotive. So I was at a company that we provided the vast majority of spatial data for car navigation systems and becoming many other industries. And I was blessed to be able to work with what we sold to 10 to 11 different industries. But the automotive side was extremely hard to innovate in, to the point that even our sales teams were separated internal. There's a lot of innovation we see that's happened in the last couple of years with Tesla and other companies like that. But going in and trying to sell something to automotive companies that were building, data, software, cars. The car worked. It worked great. BMW is a wonderful vehicle. The teams at Mercedes were incredible teams, and their vehicles were great. But the experience in the electronics were just never there. And so, and because they were building, they just weren't built for that internal. They were built for making, parts and engines and doors that worked for, 20 years and 50 years. And that's very different than building basically a laptop in a car, which was what so much of our experience is today. And they they wanted to solve it, but they just didn't have the capabilities internal to it. And so we were working with externally companies like Garmin, which were doing incredible things at the time, and coming up with watches for tracking us running and things that are day to day in our lives now. And we got to see those prototypes, years before they even hit the market. And so it was also such a stark contrast between the automotive world of that day and the other industries we worked in. And even today, that's still much of the same way. I still consult with some companies selling to those spaces, and there's a lot that has changed, but it's just a different skill set, and it's a different iteration cycle. I mean, in software, we're used to iterating on 1 and 2 week cycles, and how do we tweak things? And instead, you're talking about a 3 to 5 year cycle is a fast cycle in automotive.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it also depends on which industry you take. Like even pharma, for example, innovating in pharmaceutical is difficult because of the patents that go on for like 15, 20 years, and then they don't release the drug composition. So yeah, that is also one of the industries that can be a problem.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I like social media so much more just as a specific marketing category than anything is social does allow me to test much faster. So even if I was working in automotive today, I could use my Twitter feed for those that are on there, or Instagram, to gauge where consumers are at, where they're thinking about things. And so while the company may be taking longer iteration cycles, I can go through and I can actually test where consumers are at on a much faster basis. I mean, we see a lot shifting, like in the States, today's the 4th of July. So, you can watch how that kind of patriotism goes up and then comes back down. And, so depending on where we're at, that happens both on holidays, it happens on national events, but it also happens on things are shifting, and it, is the new Amazon auto, what somebody really wants. Well, you can go look and find that out.
True. It's the communication is too fast. And it's constantly changing. So it's not static, it's dynamic. So each moment you get new information. So you said you're currently working with high growing companies as a marketing strategist, but how do you differentiate your strategy if you would be working with a company which has the potential to grow in the next 2 to 5 years maybe?
Yeah, partially with me joining, but also with the team we're at right now. The company I joined was started in 2003 and was much more, I'd say, a potential to grow. They had an incredible product. If you ask not just their customers, but customers that they didn't have coverage for yet, they were like, that's what they wanted. They were like, come to our area. We've now set up things that companies growing substantially, and this year and next year already with new things we are now a high growth company, thankfully. So I'd say they do work very much the same, but whether it's already a high growth company or it just has the potential, you do have to take at the marketing leadership side, you have to take a lot of time, as I mentioned, in the trenches talking to people. Too many times I see marketers come in and they're really good at running ads, or they're really good at one thing, and they come in, they look at the data that's what's working, and they just start running when they haven't taken that time to figure out if it really is the right message. Even if they're earning $100 million a year, I work with those companies as well. But there is a difference though after those first 30 days or so, because in that high growth company, as the CMO, my primary job then is I still want to run tests, but they're going to be smaller. But it's to really, I kind of look at it as there's a bunch of levers on the table, and I have to keep seeing which ones I can push faster. And when the wheels of the car start to shake a little bit, I need to pull that wheel back a little bit and realize, there's something that's off with, say, the team that's focusing on email automation. And so the strategy really shifts more to implementation a lot of times for the high growth side, and figuring out how I can go faster and faster with the team, usually with hiring more people, and realize and make sure I communicate to them that if those wheels start shaking, it's not the team's fault. I should have seen that beforehand, so I could have helped them, or somebody who works for me could have helped them get through that. And when we do fail, sometimes I've had really big blow-ups in the high growth more than the potentials. That's completely on me then, because I missed the gauges that we were moving something too fast, or we took a change of direction that we hadn't really tested yet.
Okay. And so, like you said, right now you're working for a real estate company and you're selling that product. So I've seen that you market that company as well when you are selling your own self or creating your own personal brand. So how important is it for a founder or a CEO to have his own personal brand as well alongside of marketing or branding for his company?
It's not required that a founder has their own personal brand, but I would strongly suggest it. I say it's not required just because to be an influencer, to be kind of that personal voice yourself, not everybody is capable of that, but also not some people really don't enjoy that. My brother, for example, is really good at what he does, but he does not like talking to too many people at a time. He'd much rather, even in person, be around 1 to 5 people. You put him in a room of 20, it's too much. He's a huge photographer, so Instagram works well for him. But if he had to actually communicate more in social as a brand, that would be too taxing for him. He couldn't run his business. But where a founder has that capability and the skill set to do it, I think it's hugely successful for 2 things. One is, the product does need to solve a problem for me, but fundamentally I'm buying from a person. And so much what I found anyways is, unless I'm buying a thing, a car, a phone, or something, and even some cases there, I'm connecting first with a person. That could be the sales rep that's called me. That could mean the founder of the company. And I'm having an emotional connection to them already, to the messaging they're giving me. And then I'm going to go through and look and see, does it actually do what I need it to do? So it helps. The other reason I find it's very helpful is most founders, most founders don't like to hear this, but most companies fail. And so a founder may not, is likely, according to the stats, is not going to be successful with their first company. They're going to be successful with their second or third. And so I'm an advisor and on the board for a company here in Atlanta. They're the 2 founders. They're on their second company right now. The first one did okay, but it wasn't going to grow enough to keep them going. But the founders started a little bit of a personal brand, and so that's helping them with the second company as they're rolling that out. So if you start in that personal brand early, people start to know you for that. And even if you change to a different industry, you now have trust, and it's easier also to make those phone calls then, because I can call you and say, hey, I'm selling something to marketers. It's not competitive to what you guys do. Could you introduce me to this person? Well, if there's a personal connection, you're more likely to do that. So to get to those 200 or some cases 500 phone calls, it happens a lot faster.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, and that's what people like with social media. Big companies or big brands don't understand that at the end of the day, you're trying to connect to people. And so if you can communicate and listen better, then you could reach out to a lot more people. Your message is decoded, so to say, properly, rather than you trying to try and test different methods to put your message across. So in terms of marketing mix, what do you suggest would be an ideal marketing mix for steady innovation and growth in a company?
It really does depend on the industry. Late last year, I was talking with a company that sells fleet tracking systems. So there's a software component to that, but they sell to small and mid-sized businesses. A much larger, in some cases, you may only be doing digital marketing really, but in their case, we might have ended up with 20 to even 40% of the marketing mix for that company as being national events, local events, and even some print and radio, because they were selling to people that run electrician companies and plumbing companies. And so while those people are while a lot of those owners are on social, they're going to events just as in the same way that their business is. In our case right now, we're much more digitally focused, and so I think you do have to look at that. For growth, in my opinion, the more I can do digital is generally the better, unless it's something that's really a rinse and repeat style. So in the past, not so much now because we have a new baby coming with the family, but I used to do a good bit of paid public speaking, keynote speaking at large conferences. So I also have the ability to go in and from a cross promotion perspective and go to local groups, chamber of commerces, and kind of say, look, I'll waive my speaking fee in exchange for being able to come and talk on a topic that we agree to, and I'll do a 2, 3, 5 minute pitch at the end. Most people are very receptive to that. But that doesn't work from a marketing mix perspective and a cost perspective for me to do those reach outs. But I could give that to a junior member of my team and let them queue up 2 weeks at a time and kind of really do local events the way that would drive growth. That would drive huge growth. But I'd say in most cases, the more I can move to digital, the better. Social is a huge bit of that. The more I can do, and for me, I kind of split social into both. There is the pure blood flow, just content that has to be going. There's things that I like to refer to as niche neighborhooding, as far as interacting with other people in our same niche. And then there's actually we also use social media for kind of direct reach outs as well. So.
Okay, and so like you mentioned about waiving off your fees and pitching your company's product at the end of the speech. So that's sort of like collaboration with non-competitive companies or events. So what do you think, how would it help creating a symbiotic relationship with both companies or both partners' innovation strategies? How would it affect that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as that, I'm a big believer in partnerships where it makes sense. I think a lot of times people will start with partnerships when they're a really small company, and I have seen that work in rare cases, but in most cases, two small companies really just can't help each other very much, unless you happen to be able to trade some services like design versus content writing. But with the bigger things, I look for things that are I try looking for things that are going to help the other side more than they're going to help me. Because I have the ability to scale. So I can see things like the local events I mentioned and know that, hey, I may come to a local event and speak at a chamber of commerce for a good sized chamber, maybe not Atlanta, but maybe one of our suburbs, but even like the Chicago chamber, and I can come and speak there, and it kind of changes the game for who they're expecting to come to speak. I actually love that, not for anything on myself, but in their case, then the team working for them, then how do we get more people like Kurt? Because we were getting a local lawyer from a suburb before. But that's such a benefit to them, for their members that are there. I look for those because I know that, like, to them it's one partnership. To me, I'm gonna, if it works, I'm gonna go do 100 of those, or 500, or 1,000. And that scares some of my team some cases. I'm like, no, if this works, I want to speak at 500 events, next year. And they're like, that's not even possible. And I'm like, I'll show you how it's possible. But each partnership, I just look for something that's going to benefit the others more. And when that happens, it ends up being growth if you know how to scale that. But from an innovation perspective, you end up with a lot more people giving ideas in as well. And also for me, I find just innovation comes more when I talk to other people. If I'm explaining what our product does, especially if somebody is in a different industry, how I explain it is going to change. And I start to realize something different, and they ask a question, or sometimes I have to help them with the question. And you look for that look on their face, and you're like, are you wondering what I meant by that? And they'll confirm yes. And then, so you try explaining it differently. And that discussion back and forth helps me innovate within my mind and for our team. So we train people to do that.
That's great. So could you also share one of like the client stories or some personal struggles that you faced during these practices that you've done, or your personal inspiration?
Well, as far as personal struggles, when you're trying to go out, as I mentioned, have 200 phone calls in the first week or 2 weeks to talk to people, that can go really well and it can go really bad because you never know what's going on in the other case. We were working on a company that we brought through Georgia Tech and some research there, and we had called up a woman who ran marketing for a very large company in the U.S. It was the third or fourth phone call we had with her, and the first two phone calls went great. Like, we thought we were calling to be able to have a conversation about selling a product that we were going to go and build. And we still have no idea to this day what happened with her. But she said things on that call that, was basically that we should question our belief about being alive as humans, that would take the time to call her. And I know it was not, I have no idea what happened job-wise, person-wise that day, but we even went back and looked at our notes. We had recorded the previous call. It just was so not aligned. And that was really hard for us at that time, even though we knew what she was speaking was not truth. Well, there's that roller coaster, and that roller coaster happens when you're trying to really drive growth and innovation and talk to people to really find out where you're wrong. And that's, it's both good and bad. You have to develop some thick skin for it. And I've gotten a lot better at it. Thankfully, I have a wife that's really good when I come is and she'll ask me, she'll ask me some of those questions to let me realize, oh, that was just a bad day that we were having. Tomorrow is going to be a different day. But I find when you're really pushing for growth and innovation and you're asking questions, I wake up every day knowing that I'm wrong about 3 to 4 major things in my business and my marketing. Every day. There's 3 to 4 things. So it's more of, am I going to figure it out today or not? So I'm going to ask questions. And so when I'm taking that kind of curious approach about myself, humbly admitting I could be doing something 3 times better, 5 times better. I'm called a 10x marketer. So, but maybe I could be a 50x marketer if I could figure out what I could be doing better today. That just lets me also change some of the disadvantages to advantages.
True. It's easy, I think, because you're so passionate, because you like to listen, because you're very communicative. I think these are very much conducive to growth and to changing, because such people are more accepting towards change. And I think with innovation, you need to understand that as if I'm building a product and tomorrow it's getting better, I also need to accept the fact that it wasn't good enough yesterday. And that's the place where some of the founders or some of the innovators lack, and that's why they don't become 50x marketers or 5x marketers that way.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think part of it also, you made me think. I think one of the skills that founders could really benefit from is making sure that they are happy with their product today. At least in some way. So personally, I always hate whatever my software product is. If I'm just really honest, because I picture where it's going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I even see the interface sometimes, and I know what that's going to be like. So I have to go back and go, yeah, but here's the superhero stories that we're solving for customers today. And so I we're solving real problems today. But I'm also unhappy because it's not the product that we're going to have in 3 years. I see a lot of founders where they'll never get to innovation. I know one founder that they've probably 2.5 years they built a product before they took it to get it out. They could have had it out in 9 months, but it was never. He always lived in the same place. He wanted it to be the product 3 to 5 years out, and so it was never okay releasing it today. And I've seen that actually dozens of times from people, and it's like, that innovation, be happy with what you have, and if you solve problems for today, but to some degree, always be unhappy with it's not there, and then just love the process to get there.
Yeah, true. That is so true. So thank you very much for such an informative session. I hope that you also had fun talking with us. Do you have any closing notes for our viewers?
I love that you guys, are connecting, marketing and innovation, because to me, real innovation, there are arcade people like Nikola Tesla who can just sit in a lab and invent things, but really throughout history, if you look at things, things happen from talking to others and getting ideas and hearing about their problems or hearing about suggestions for even features. And so you're not going to get that if you're a product team just sitting in a room somewhere. And so I think it is natural for marketing and innovation to sit together. And, I love that you guys, focus on this with social media too, because right now that's the easiest way for me to go and really get feedback and to start a conversation. I raised money on a company where the first investor in was an angel investor on the other side of the country that I met on Twitter. I met my wife on Twitter. So if I can do those things, then somebody can start a conversation that's going to lead to them changing their product.
That is nice. So yeah, thank you so much once again for being a part of this podcast. Okay, yeah, it was really nice talking to you. Happy 4th of July. Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah.